Well, thank you. I'm thrilled and really honored to be on this panel. I have to say that what Andreas has said, as it always does, chimes absolutely in with my mission, objectives, and what I believe the next steps for education are. I think education is what will define our future. But I do not mean the broken system of education that was created in and for the Industrial Revolution by men. It is not fit for purpose. It really is time that women lead and start to shape the future, because in a man-made future, which is, you know, what we've had so far historically is patriarchy and male thinking that has led us into wars, humanitarian disasters, and planetary disasters. And I'm sorry, I don't want to be divisive. I am speaking about facts. And it is very important, I think, for us to recognize that, or we will never be able to reverse it. So for me, it's a very different kind of education, and one that actually does not exist yet, to our great shame. H.G. Wells said, I would just love to float this very extraordinary quote of H.G. Wells, which speaks to this point we're talking about. He said, civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. And I think no truer word, there's no exaggeration in that, because we are headed to catastrophe. I'm so thrilled, George, that you started inserting the concept of cross-cultural learning and groups learning from one another, because I began to fear. And Jerome, we spoke you know, so warmly, and you're such a great guy, but your vision of the future horrifies and depresses me, I have to say, because there's no room for people there. There's no room for humanity or humaneness. And, you know, this, and I see you shaking your head, and forgive me, I always speak, you know, just from the heart, because I think these discussions are too important for us to just, you know, speak and not be challenging with each other, right? You speak about the you know, self-initiating next steps. I can't even remember the technical phrase itself, but the majority of
self-actualization.
Self-actualization. Thank you, Jerome. Self-actualization. The majority of people in this world do not even have technology, connectivity, hardware. What are we talking about? Just leaving behind billions of people? Because we, the few who have it, have decided that this is the future. So education, I say, is the most important form of social investment that we can make in our future civilization, be it the next 10 years or the next millennium. It's the very engine of progress. And I would argue that it's actually been derailed, it's been misconceived, it's been, you know, hijacked by the wrong hands and minds for the wrong purposes. Essentially, its purpose has been and continues to be negligently, idiotically, to try and create a place in the labor market for our children, to enable them to earn. As Andreas pointed out, that is so far from what is required from education in the 21st century that it is simply a sort of amateur negligence of one of the most important motors that we have. You know, it was created for no other purpose than filling factories. So, as Gandhi said, and I have to bring this down to the children in early years education, because I'm about to tell you what I do and what my practical, pragmatic, tangible, active solution is. Why do I bring it down to the children? Because just as no architect would build a building without a foundation, we have ignored the early years, when all the neuroscientists are clear that it is the optimal period in the development of the human brain. 90% of the adult brain is fully formed by the age of 5. At the age of 6, the proportion of effort required to change the brain on a very famous and extraordinary graph by professors at the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard, the amount of effort required starts going into such a steep incline. Why and how have we been so stupid as to treat the early years when we can make a difference to that individual for the rest of their lives? We've treated them as babysitting years. We have not seen it as our responsibility to engage with the moral development of the human being. That moral compass, that empathy, and empathy is not something you can learn. You're born with a potential for it, but if it's not used, the brain pares away those synaptic connections that would otherwise be forming your empathetic neuropathways. So, we have to practice, co-construct with our children at the time when we can make that difference, pro-social neuropathways in their developing brain. And there are 60 plus years of longitudinal studies which prove that when we do that with quality, social and emotional learning, some, I think Andreas OECD calls it 21st century skills. The nomenclature is confused. Some call it soft skills. Personally, I would say that social and emotional learning is the right description, because soft skills suggest that it's extra on top, not that necessary. Well, the connection to make a gender equal a view in the brain of another human being rather than a stereotype is as hard as is the connection used when multiplying or carrying out some scientific formula. So soft doesn't do it for me. And 21st century skills, I think, just begs the question, did we really not need this kind of education in any other century? And of course we did, because this is the education that prevents war, that prevents rape, that prevents our children from becoming depressed and not having the tools to deal with it, that has them committing suicide in droves like lemmings off cliffs. So I'm going to end, because I'm just aware that I've spoken a lot and we have more time for all of this. I'm going to end by just asking a question that frames my work, and then a very short description. In fact, I'll show you materials of what it is I do to bring social and emotional learning to every child in every classroom in every country in the world. We're currently in 16 countries. We have one country that has made this program compulsory for every single 3 to 5 year old child. Belize, that is a country that will now have the next generation growing up. Let's look at that country in 2030 and see how many rapes and suicides there have been in the last 10 years when our 5-year-olds are now 15. So, and we're funded sometimes by the World Bank, by UNICEF. We're working in partnership with UNICEF, with Pope Francis, with extraordinary partners, and the work is just flying at scale. The question is, how can we, if we truly have and take seriously our duty of care to our next generation and our youngest citizens, how can we deem it to be compulsory for our children to learn numeracy and literacy and science and technology, but it be optional for them to learn how to value another human being, optional for them to learn how to lead healthy relationships? This cannot be optional. This is what we must change. And the program, the Think Equal program, is a 3-year, 3-level age-appropriate program for 3 to 4 year olds, then 4 to 5, and 5 to 6. We don't work above 6. It's great that others do. I'm thrilled they do. I don't mean to say children after 6 can't change, but foundations can only put in before 6. That is where we're going to work because our aim is ambitious enough, being global. We have in each level 30 weeks of program, 3 lessons per week. These are scripted, absolutely easy step-by-step instructions. And the reason they have to be is this is a brand new subject. Nobody knows how to teach this. No teachers are trained in social emotional learning yet. I hope in a decade, 2 decades, that'll be the case. But until we get there, we have to prescribe, because what we're interested in is being even-handed with the children and the children getting the right to have positive outcomes in their lives. So we have 22 narrative picture books. Here are some examples. I love my planet. Upside down, is there anyone like me? You can imagine what all of these deal with. It's me, myself, and I. That's all about self-esteem, how we feel. I could go on. We've created every one of these books. I think we have too little time to work on this, to be honest. We were talking about the millennial goals, which would be achieved by 2015. We're now already losing hope that anything can be done with the new Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. We're starting to push forward the deadline to 2050. This is so critical. It is so urgent. I don't think we have the luxury anymore of trying to bring Jerome and Evgeny's position closer to mine. This is like trying to bring together 2 worldviews that are so clashing, so fundamentally opposed. This is like trying to bring together Trump's support base with the Democrats. It ain't going to happen. The world's gone too far in the other direction. With the greatest respect, Evgeny, what you were describing was like describing the world as a video game, talking about pioneers and new frontiers. Why should I care about your new frontiers in space? I care about 80+ million refugees who are already without any kind of jobs, let alone the people who are going to be left behind by your boys with toys. Sorry, I have to call it like it is. I've got to do that, or else I will not be being responsible or honest to our joint mission. By the way, I'm part of a group called Catalyst 2030. I want to mention that because it's an extraordinary group of change makers who come together. Some of them have different views, some tackle things in many different ways across different disciplines. Great, but let's those of us who do actually have, say, goal 4.7 at our heart. And I know, Andreas, you and I are on mission 4.7, which Ban Ki-moon is leading, and Audrey Azoulay, and a number of extraordinary people, Pope Francis, the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences as well. And, there is a group where we have got together. Jeffrey Sachs, the most enlightened, extraordinary human being, I think, who walks the earth right now. Jeffrey has brought all of these like-minded people together with practical programs so that practical steps can be taken, so that we're not sitting here dreaming about spending trillions, about getting the next space. We won't survive to that point the way we're going. And certainly, we have no moral compass. We've lost even the basic understanding of what truth is. It's a disgrace to the point to which we've been brought as a human race.